And we're back. What is this? This is what, Trace? This is the third episode, right? Next
Yeah,
episode,
this is third. Yep.
Old School Law. I am Dantron, and this is my big dog Wolf.
Yo, what's up,
So
folks?
this next system, I'm pretty excited about. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this system. This system had a really long lifespan. As a matter of fact, there's still like newer games being put out in other regions and stuff. Like it's huge in Brazil, and there's multiple iterations of this machine itself that has come out, but still runs kind of on the same architecture. So I'm hyped about it. Wolf, you got anything you got to say before you're gonna tell us what it is?
Oh, sure. So that's right, because I spoiled it last time. I'm good at that.
That's all
So,
right. It was a spoiler. They would have found out sometime.
right. So today's episode is Sega Genesis, and
Whoop.
yeah, so we're pretty stoked about this, and it's going to be cool because I feel like people fell into one. Oh, look at that! You guys got a sneak peek right there. Look at that shiny in all of its glory.
You know what
I
it's
mean, all of Dan's stuff is always in like amazing condition. I've noticed he never holds up a piece of crap. It's always like looking brand new off the shelf. I love it.
I'll try to keep my hands off crap. Honestly.
No doubt.
This,
But
yeah.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
This episode itself, like I was explaining it, there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to go into it, and the Genesis itself, this system, there was multiple versions of it. This was like the original kind of layout. Then you've seen newer versions. I don't have that one available, but it's a very cool system. Wolf, show us the awesomeness, please,
Okay.
please. I
So
I can't contain this.
you have to understand this, folks. Like this is not a like a bragging session, but that both of us are doing. We're trying to enlighten and spread our knowledge to people that want to get into this. The stuff I'm showing I got a long time ago, like Dan said in the last episode, when people were practically giving this stuff away. I have three of these. So this is one of them. This is a Sega Genesis original in box. Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't know. Hard to see.
Factory sealed.
Yes. So this is. I don't know. I mean, I feel like you fell into one of two areas at that time. You were either like all on board with the Super Nintendo, or you were all on board with the Sega Genesis. And Dan, that the marketing at that time was vicious. It was Sonic versus Mario,
Yeah.
tons of commercials. What do you say all the time, like in chats when
Oh,
we're playing the game?
Nintendo
Sega
don't.
donor. Oh,
Nintendo
that's
don't.
it.
So Nintendo don't play is the big one, but that wasn't from me. That was from Sega way back. So Genesis, remember one of the taglines was "Does what Nintendo don't," and so
That's
I take
right.
that because Nintendo don't play, right? You got people that are messing with Nintendo. Nintendo cease and desist all day on you. So Nintendo don't play. Yeah, and then the Sega Genesis does things that Nintendo don't. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a very, very cool system. Hey, Wolf, what does that box smell like? Because I'm anticipating it smells like honey and happiness. That's what it smells
Oh,
like.
well, not this one. There's about 5 inches of dust, so it smells like let me smell. It smells like an old age home mixed with mothballs and circus peanuts.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Well, circus peanuts are the selling point. So, so Genesis itself. So it is a 16-bit system. They had this really cool, like these older ones are awesome because they actually had. If you guys remember this, it was one of those where it had the headphone jack, and you could actually. So if you didn't want your parents, okay. So put it this way: if by chance you had some parents that were like, "No, you got to get up and you got to do something else before you play your video games," there was a way that you could actually still play your video games. I'm not saying that you should have done that, and I'm not saying I did that. I'm just saying because the headphone jack, and that gives the ability for you to actually listen and play your games without everybody else hearing it. So, very, very cool system. We're also going to touch, so we're going to talk about Genesis, but we're going to also talk about this right here, the Sega CD. This was an add-on
Oh,
device for the Genesis, and it enabled you to play CD-based kind of Genesis, larger Genesis games, basically.
mhm.
There was two versions of this. Actually, the other version is the one that I want to get, but these are getting a little more rare to find. If any of you remembered, you can see pictures of Sega CDs, and they're like it looks like an actual CD player with like a it was a box underneath it, and then it would have like a tray that would come out. It would say Sega CD. I want to get one of those because it works better for this. But what this Sega CD did was an add-on. You can see there's like on the side there's this spot right here that where's it at? Right there, that plugs in. So basically what you would do is you would take the side piece off your Genesis, this side chunk. You pop that off. There was a red like sleeve that was over the top of it to protect it. But then you would slide it and it would lock together, and then you can play your Sega CD games. So yeah, it's really, really cool. The lifespan again was long time.
Right.
So Wolf and I were just going to go through a few games that we remember playing that we liked. Also, we were talking, and we don't necessarily, it wasn't our main system. Like for me, this was one I liked some of the games on it, but it wasn't my main system. This system around this time, I mean, I was playing more Super Nintendo. I mean, that's really what it was. But there was a few games on this that I had to have. And a lot of those are games that you know about that we might not necessarily talk about. But Sonic played so much differently than anything that was on the Super Nintendo. And so that was the first one that I was like, all right, I got to have a Genesis at some point. But I was a little slower to get this system because of, I'm a kid, right? I got to pick one or the other, right? And it was Super Nintendo or was this, and around the same time. So Super Nintendo won out for me. That doesn't mean that I don't know a bit about Sega Genesis, and that doesn't mean I don't have a lot of Sega Genesis games, because I do. But yeah, go ahead, Wolf.
No, definitely, and I love what you're saying. I mean, I fell into that same category as well. I am a Nintendo fanboy through and through. It's really like it's kind of my jam, and I remember going to a friend's house and actually playing the Sega Genesis and going, "Whoa, wait a second, this is really cool!" Like the way it sound, I can't really, I don't know how to put it. It's like Genesis had like a digitized sound to their games that just and they had a different kind of color palette than the Super Nintendo did. So their games popped in another way, and their joystick or their controller was really interesting. And I remember playing it and saying, man, just like you did, I'd like to have this. There's some games that I think would be really cool. So yeah, I agree with you. It's a really cool system, but I was definitely like more Super Nintendo. But like Dan, I have a pretty decent Genesis collection as well, and they're games that still hold today.
Yep.
Without question.
So this before we go into our first games that we're going to kind of talk about, I wanted one more nerd fact, because any weird nerd facts that I got, it's kind of fun, and it's something you don't normally hear. So
nerd
facts. So this weird adapter for the actual video, right? The weird, I don't remember what they called it. What was it? It was like a specialty audio video out. Nerd fact, if you have one of these cords, which they're kind of rare, works on a Neo Geo. It's the exact same cord. Yep.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, like I said, nerd fact. And how do I know this? Not because I found out because I own them. That was it. I was like, this cord looks the same, and it is. It's like
that's really cool.
Yeah, so I have one of these cords for Genesis, and my Neo Geo, I was like, oh, where's my cord? And I was like, oh, this looks like the same cord. Let me try it. It works. So
hold on 1 second. Let me grab this.
Yeah. Ooh, what are you grabbing?
Okay, so
let me see.
You inspire me, Dan Larson. So, nerd fact number 2, and Dan mentioned a fun fact about peripherals. Here is, and I'm sorry, excuse me for how dusty this controller is. This is a regular Sega Genesis controller, but I don't know if the audience could see the end, how it has these holes that I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up top, or maybe 6 up top, 5 on the bottom. You could actually plug a Sega Genesis controller into your Atari.
It's the
and
same.
Play Atari games with your Sega Genesis controller, because it has the same I guess you could say, input into the machine, which is really, I think, a cool nerd fact as well.
And it would only work that way too. You would never take an Atari controller and try to play Genesis with it.
Oh,
You just
hell
wouldn't.
no.
No, it's just garbage. Atari controllers. Blech.
Yeah.
All right, so Wolf, you want to go into first, or do you want me to go first? I don't mind. You want to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
You go first.
So I'm gonna touch on. So we have some choices in Sega Genesis games, and we also have some choices in Sega CDs if you have them. So my first one I'm gonna go is actually a Sega CD game, and it's Slipheed. Any of you that have ever played Slipheed, it's been out on other systems. Check it out in emulation if you can. But if you look at it, it's got this cool. It's like a top-down shmup kind of, but it's got this. It had levels that had like 3 dimensions built into it, and during Sega CD time, that was pretty impressive. It was a beautiful game. It's nice and shiny. It has that Japanese kind of anime feel to it. So I really like this game. It's a lot of fun. It is only a single player game, so you got to pass the controller. But for its time, this was a really fun game that maybe a lot of people haven't heard of, and so I wanted to make sure that I pulled this one out and show you guys. This is a really fun game if you get a chance to play it.
Yeah, Dan did that because he knows I'm really jealous. First off, I love shooters, any type of shmups. And I remember at that time I wanted a Sega CD to play some of those shmups, which looked way better than the Genesis, like he said. It's the way I like to describe that is if you took a big syringe with fentanyl and you injected it into a Zaxxon game, you have what Dan just held up.
I like that.
The graphics were very similar, but more of what he just said of that time period, like polygonal, more PS1 looking, and just very different than any of the 16-bit shooters at that time. It was super cool.
Well, and then the other popular kind of 3-dimensional game that was kind of in that. See, it's kind of 3-dimensional, but not really. It's kind of like the faked 3-dimensional, right? So like the ship is still kind of 2D, and how it moves is 2D, but the background was kind of 3D. Yep. So the only thing that was kind of similar at that time was like Star Fox on Super Nintendo. That was right around. So I mean, Star Fox came a little bit later than this, but this still looked better than Star Fox, but it didn't fully play 3-dimensional like Star Fox did. So it was one of those like in between, like, oh, that looks kind of like Star Fox, but it's not kind of like Star Fox, but it looks cooler at certain points. But then it doesn't play exactly. But anyways, it was just that was right when they were starting to shift to a lot more 3-dimensional stuff. Sega CD was like right around the time that they started doing like Virtua Fighter, and just before Sega Saturn was kicking and popping off. So, but yeah, lots of fun. Another thing to keep in mind, though, is if you are going to start retro collecting for Sega CD games, you'll actually find they're very cost effective. They're priced very well. You'd imagine that they would be super astronomical because of their type of cases, how they're the bigger like Sega Saturn size cases, but they're priced really well. The thing to remember, though, is if you are getting into retro collecting on these, is this is right around the time you're gonna have to start dealing with something that's called disk rot. Disk rot is just where you lose data on the disk, and how can you tell you have disk rot is usually by you have to pull the disk out and hold it up to a light source, and you'll start seeing little like light pinhole light holes through the actual disk. That's when you know it's rotted. So you probably won't be able to play it at that point, but if you want to collect it just because you want to have it, that I would never say throw a disc away, but if you're planning on trying to play something, that's something you got to check for.
Yeah, no doubt. And just a quick thing with what you were saying, how, because I think it's a good point, how like the plane is moving in 2D, but the background is kind of 3D. The Super Nintendo and Genesis had a trick called parallax scrolling, where they would have 2D kind of sprites, but it would look like the background was moving in the back. It would give like this really neat 3D effect at the time period, which was cool. But obviously the game he's showing was way more far advanced than parallax scrolling.
Well, parallax scrolling was really cool because it wasn't just like one layer, right? And then you're moving across with the
Multiple.
background, right? It was like sometimes 3 or 4
Yep.
layers of stuff moving in the background, which was really, really cool. And you wouldn't realize it until you got in there and you started playing some of these older games. You're like, oh yeah, I noticed the difference there. Oh yeah, I noticed the difference there. But before that, it was unheard of to see those multiple layers moving across each other.
Definitely.
All
All
right,
right.
I'm ready, Wolf.
Jeez. Okay. Well, good. So you inspired me with the shmup. So I'm gonna go with a shmup. It's one of my favorites. It's old. It's an older shmup. I remember playing it at my friend's house, and I definitely wanted it. It's called Forgotten Worlds
Oh heck yeah,
for Sega
great choice.
Genesis. Yeah, very cool. I don't know if you could see the it's really cool. It's got like kind of like Contra graphics, and you're flying in the air on this jetpack and you're like shooting things, but the bosses were huge, big sprites, colorful. It sounded great, and it's really one of my favorite old shmups.
Wasn't
And
it
you're
similar
talking,
to Space Harrier, like a 2-player version of Space Harrier?
yes, yes, except Space Harrier, right? So you're moving in a vertical kind
Hmm.
of direction. This is obviously a horizontal.
Yep,
You're going left to
left to
right.
right.
Yeah, shmup.
Cool.
So I highly recommend it. 1 to 2 players, 1989. I gotta say though that this is about $100 if you want to get this today. It's
This
kind of collectible
this
because
is
it's older.
right, but this is the thing too that you'll find. Genesis games and their cases held out really well over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Their cases are so freaking bulletproof. Like you could have like kids walk along the game, and it wouldn't crush the case. And they had a really like tough plastic that was clear on it that has like a texture to it. Yeah, exactly, Wolf.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Headbutt that sucker.
So,
Nothing's happening.
and the artwork on a lot of those cartridges it was amazing. Like, look at that art. I mean,
I
that's
love it.
you don't see stuff like that anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just another piece of how the things that endear Genesis to you. Not only did they have great games, and then they're still fairly affordable. I mean, that one was a little bit more on the pricier range
Mm-hmm.
for Genesis, but when you're really looking at it, like when we did our last one, our GameCube one, most of our
Yeah.
games were around that. So, I
Yeah,
mean, and
that's
that's
true.
one of the more pricey ones. So, yeah, Wolf, I never played that one, but I'm gonna have to check it out
Ooh.
via
Yeah.
emulation.
Megacade that one. Megacade.
Yep, for sure. Remember some of this stuff. You got anything else on that one, buddy?
No, no. I think that's it because there's not much to say other than it's a, horizontal shmup, 1989. It's older, but still holds out well. Super fun. 1 to 2 players. Awesome bosses. Great music. Definitely check it out.
Awesome. All right, so next for me, this was one that everybody's played this game in the past on PC or on arcade or anything. It's been out multiple times, but this is one of the coolest cases you will ever see. Case art
Hmm.
for any Genesis game, actually almost any game. This is one of the coolest arts that I've ever seen, and I'm gonna show you.
Oh, yeah.
Ghouls and Ghosts on Sega Genesis. Let me
That's
just
dope.
look at that. Look at that artwork. Like the case
Amazing.
itself is freaking amazing. And when you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at the game too, the game is a lot of fun. I mean, it's kind of I'm trying to get out of that light there.
Oh, yeah, you can
It's a
see.
it's
Yep.
a fun. I mean, ghouls and ghosts, ghosts and goblins, kind of the same thing.
Mhm.
You're still moving side to side, but it's you get hit and your stuff flies off and you're naked and you're still yep.
Mhm.
So I'm fine with that part, but this is one of those really, really cool games that if you had never played it on Sega Genesis, or if you have a Genesis and you're retro collecting for, this is one that I would try and find and pick up. If not because the game is fun, but also because the artwork is something special. And yeah, I really, really like this one. The books too. Actually, this might be easier to see the artwork on that.
Yeah,
So
it's beautiful.
the
Good
book
copy.
and yeah, and all the stuff. Oh yeah, by the way, so Genesis carts. So one of the things that you want to look for when you're getting a Genesis cart only, because you don't have to necessarily pay full price and get full cases and all that, but if you're looking for carts, um, You can just some of the things you want to look for is like how is the artwork? Is it really scratched up? Are you seeing stickers and stuff all over it? And then just making sure that it plays. There wasn't a lot of Genesis games that were fakes either. It's kind of hard to fake those. You don't normally see fake Genesis cartridges,
No.
but pay attention because there are some of them out there. So if you're getting cart only, just make sure that if you were wanting to, well, I guess if it works, it doesn't matter if it's fake. But if you're looking at picking up something for an investment for later in life, then make sure it's real.
Yep. Great. Mistake alert. Whoop whoop.
What's that?
So, Forgotten Worlds, I said was $100. I was about $60 off on that. It's about $41 to $42 right now, complete in box. Now, the game that Dan held up is $70, so that is a more expensive game. So I was off. 1,000 apologies, everybody.
Well, the thing that's what you'll notice about a lot of the games that are more expensive when it comes to Genesis, it's going to be the artwork on the box more than anything. I mean, yes, some of the games were more rare, so you're going to find some of those games, but it's going to be more about, this system is more about artwork and boxes and cases. You'll get game only way cheaper than almost any other system that you want to collect for. So awesome.
Oh, no doubt.
Lots of fun. All right, Wolf, what's your next one, buddy?
Okay, so my next one is, I'm going to go with a platformer. I'm not sure if anybody's heard of this game. It's kind of unusual. It's called Decap Attack.
Not to be confused with Kneecap Attack, which is what midgets will usually do. I mean, little people. They don't like being called midgets. Yes. Little people. I respect them and I love them. Lots of fun. Go ahead. Decap Attack. Bringing it back.
So, I mean, look at that goddamn artwork.
It's
okay.
So cool.
That is just it's just so awesome. It's such a unique game. It's a platformer, kind of plays like a Mario, and the hook is that the guy could get different heads and you throw your head at the enemies to attack, and then different heads give you special abilities.
That's how you get pregnant.
Oh my God.
Sorry, go ahead.
And it was just so unique. Just really cool, designs on the monsters. I don't know if you could see that bottom one.
Heck yeah.
Colorful. I super unique. It kind of plays like one of my favorite games of all time for the PS3 called Puppeteer. Have you ever played that game where you're constantly changing your head out and it gives you special abilities? I want to say maybe Puppeteer was inspired by Decap Attack, but definitely a fun type of game. And I want to say it's very affordable. You get this for, I think, $40. And it is loads of fun to play with your family. And just, I don't know. I always love Decap Attack. Anytime I think of the Genesis, kind of brings me back to playing this when I was a kid.
And you know what? I didn't even know it existed. So guess what I'm going to do after we're done here?
Mega cake.
That's right. I'm gonna be capping some decaps.
Oh, nice.
All right. So the next one I'm gonna show is I'm going back to Sega CD. This game right here, Sonic CD. Now I'm gonna tell you, it's not necessarily better than the original Sonic the Hedgehog or even Sonic 2 or Sonic 3 even. But what I will tell you is the reason why I got it is the music at the very beginning of this game. As soon as anybody has ever experienced the music that is at the beginning of Sonic CD, just if you haven't experienced it, pull it up, find a video on YouTube or something. The music was freaking awesome. The intro, the whole intro artwork and everything was just great. Oh yeah, then I pop it open. They're talking about Echo the Dolphin. That's your favorite game there, Wolf. But but yeah, no, it's cool. It's got it actually had some kind of three-dimensional different Sonic type looking levels that wasn't just necessarily Sonic jumping side to side. So it was a different way to play the game. This is what they had, that little icon, the Q sound. That's what Wolf was talking about, that Genesis games and Sega CD used a lot of that too. But yeah, very fun game. There's What do you think, Wolf? There's probably 30 Sonic games at least.
Oh my goodness, so many. I'm going to talk about that next. I'm just going to add on to what you're saying, so I'll just hold that thought until you're
Yeah.
done.
So again, there's a single player, general audiences, those GA games, so your kids can play it. But it's a lot of fun. I enjoy this game. But again, it's not. If I'm gonna get down and play a Sonic game, this is probably not the one I'm gonna pull. But just for the music and intro alone is why I own it. So.
My God, definitely.
Yep.
And that's Dan's been on point, man. That's that game's reasonable. It's like between $50 and $65 depending on condition and stuff. So, it's and what Dan doesn't know is that Q also stands for quintessential.
Oh,
Because to
I
me,
don't.
that was the quintessential version of how to play Sonic the Hedgehog, because it was like the original, but just better in every aspect. And that's kind of where I'm going to come in right here, because you can't talk about the Genesis and not talk about the mascot and how just amazing these games were. Actually, this one right here is my favorite. Sonic
Yep.
2, without question, is my favorite Sonic game.
Agreed.
Followed by what Dan just held up, Sonic CD. And then, I don't know, I don't want to say they were getting silly, but they were doing all these like offshoots, like with Knuckles and Sonic Spinball. And there's so many different Sonics. I want to say there's maybe even 7 for the Genesis, I think,
There's a
just
lot.
for the Genesis. I didn't feel like digging them all out and showing you, because Sega did something that I did not appreciate. They went from these hard, awesome cases to protect your cartridges, and they went to cardboard. So like some of those Sonic games had cardboard boxes, and they just don't hold up as well. And I don't know. I was really disappointed in that. And I know it was a cost saving maneuver. But I must say that nobody could get a Genesis without getting a Sonic game of some sort to play with yourself or your family. So
Yeah, you don't
must.
necessarily want to play with yourself all the time because that's how you go blind. But Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is definitely the one that I would get if you had to choose a Sonic game for Sega Genesis, and even Sega CD. Sonic 2 definitely is one that you want to look at. Great choices. Was that your choices, or was that a honorable mention there, Wolf?
It's kind of not, because I know, like Dan and I talked beforehand, just so we didn't repeat games. I just wanted to follow what I was waiting for you to show Sonic CD, so I could just show the
Yeah,
audience
yeah.
what the regular Sonic games look like, because they're some of my favorite.
All right. Well, then I'm still waiting. Give me it. Like, take your shirt
Oh,
off.
okay. All right.
Show me that game that you were thinking of.
All right. So this one I actually have to get up for a second.
That's all right. We can just look at that sweet stuff that you have in the background. What does that say? I love. Oh, it's back there
Oh,
now.
I love GameCube.
It's still
Oops.
GameCube. That's all right. We still love GameCube anyways. Let's do it.
All right. So here we go. This is my next game.
Oh yeah, I know what it is. Heck yeah. You
That
gotta
was
do the
horrible,
you
by the
gotta do the
way.
leg thing. The leg thing though.
Oh, the leg kick.
And yeah, you gotta yell sham on.
So
Oh.
my pick is it's just, I remember playing this. I didn't pick this because it's a great game by any stretch of the imagination. It's just, I don't know, iconic. I think of the
Yep.
Genesis, I think of Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, and it's they actually had this in the arcade. I believe this is on, you could play this on MAME,
Yep.
and
And it's three
it was
player.
just so much fun.
3 player on MAME. Two
Yeah, you're
player.
right. 3 player, right.
Player
It's
there.
only 1 to 2 on Genesis. And it's a lot of fun. I gotta be honest with you, it's a little kind of like creepy, like he's trying to save kids,
He's
and
rescuing
like,
children with his chimp
and he's
buddy,
like,
and they're
yeah, he's like
freeing.
humping Bubbles the
Yep.
chimp.
Yeah, freeing children that are all strapped up, and from these, and it's
Yeah,
like, yep, that's all right, just saving kids.
a little weird, but anybody that's never played this, one of the coolest parts of the game is you have like a special ability where you could like hit a button and all of a sudden Michael Jackson breaks out in dance and song with some of his hits, and all the enemies
Uh-huh.
start dancing
He
along.
starts
And
dancing.
then, yeah. And then at the end he goes, and he like, and they all like puff in the smoke and disappear.
Yeah.
Super cool though. Just, I don't know. I guess I picked this just to kind of reminisce, but these are one of these type of games that is ridiculous, right? So if you want this the way I have it, complete in box.
And it skyrocketed. The price skyrocketed after Michael Jackson passed away. Just so you
Oh
know.
my God.
But go ahead.
This is like $200 to $225, depending on condition, what the manual's like and stuff. It's ridiculous. And the game is not worth that, folks. You could play that, try it out, emulation, Megacade, some other way, but this is just something that I picked up a long time ago, and it's just, I don't know, brought back memories.
You know what brought back memories is I don't own that game, but I had almost bought it a couple of times, and I actually had it like I was watching them, and from various eBay sellers. So when I decided I wanted to buy it, because it was like $35 only.
Yeah,
And you can get it complete $35. Then I'm not exaggerating. The day Michael Jackson passed away, I went and looked, and they were up to like $80. And I'm like, whoa, and it's just been going up and up and up. So there's going to be a few of those games specifically for Genesis that are unique, but they're few and far between that are getting super expensive like that.
Oh, yeah.
And usually it's tied along into something else. So, but that's still a great choice. I do enjoy Moonwalker. And if you think of that one move that he does, the dance move where it kills everybody on the screen, the magic move, it reminds me of Golden Axe. So any of those moves with Golden Axe, where and all the stuff blows up everything around, it's kind of the same thing, only everybody dances. Like he's not the only one that starts dancing. He starts dancing and all the enemies start dancing too, and then they die. That's one of the greatest parts about that game. I love that one. Good job, Wolf.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, so next one, I'm gonna. Okay. So, like I normally do it, I don't necessarily. These aren't favorite games, and I don't have an order to them, but I do usually try to keep some of my more favorite games towards the end. Just the games that meant something to me, or that I have more of a fresh memory on, and so this is one of them.
Oh, I can't believe I don't have that.
Yep, Castle of Illusion. Now, what's really cool is they actually did a remake of this game fairly recently, within the past, what was it, 5 years or so?
Yeah.
That you could get on, I want to say it was 360. You can still get it through Microsoft Marketplace. I'm pretty darn sure you can get it on Steam even at this point. But this is a lot of fun. This game is a platformer that you go through levels, you unlock different levels. It's very bright, it's colorful, it's a lot of fun to play. Kids can play it, adults can play it. It's a good story. It plays great. It's not way hard, but it has a really good difficulty ramp up. It's not like it's all of a sudden it just gets super hard. And so it's got a lot of replayability in it. So I really, really like this one, and I don't think it's one of those games I don't think it's too expensive, but it's a lot of fun. This one, and the artwork, again, remember I said it's the artwork on a lot of these things that really set it aside and make them special. But I do remember playing this when I was younger too, and it was a lot of fun.
Oh man, you just brought back so many positive memories. That's Castle of Illusion, right?
Yep.
I don't know how I don't have that, because I swear you just talking about it brought back my childhood. Oh wow. Okay. $60.
So there's another Mickey one that's called what is it? Castle of Wonder or something like that. That I looked at, or is it? It's something like that. It's similar to Castle of Illusion. It's something else.
Okay.
But anyways, I have it. I remember looking at it, but it wasn't as much fun as this one. This one, the story was really, really good, and it played well. The level design was a lot of fun. So check it out, definitely. This one, Castle of Illusion on Genesis, or if you have some other way to play it, upgraded graphics or whatever. It's a lot of fun. It is a very enjoyable game to play.
That is a hell of a pick, man. That is such a I swear I remember. Do you remember, Dan, that first level with the giant red apples?
Oh yeah, hang on. There's that.
The game is so
Where's it at?
amazing. Is that it?
No, those are the mushrooms.
Oh, those are mushrooms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, this is.
Okay.
Look at that 16-bit cartridge.
Yeah. It's awesome. Great pick.
Thanks, man.
Okay, so for my next pick, we're getting to the bottom here.
That's all right. We like bottoms.
Okay. Oh, well, yes. Yes. I didn't know. I mean, I love all of them, but I think my favorite of this series is right here. It's called Shinobi 3: Return of the Ninja Master. And I thought this game was so cool. I think this is the one that, like, you have a dog. Am I thinking of the right one? Where Shinobi has like a dog and you could sick the dog.
I think I think that is that
people.
one. Yeah, because
Okay.
they had to do something different. Because 1 and 2 were kind of really similar. And I think 3. Yeah, I think that's the one that is.
And you could see like that second picture from the top. Those were the bosses, like a whole screen, like action packed. Graphics were great. 25 stages. I thought the sound was great. Just it was such a fun game, and I was really challenging. I remember having a hard time beating it, and it's a lot of fun. And I forget how much it is. I want to say it's $60 or something like that.
That the bosses reminded me of like the R-type bosses.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, right. Because the R-type had those bosses that were like the whole screen.
yeah.
It was,
Oh,
or even
definitely.
some of the Altered Beast. Those bosses that were like full screen, very similar. Like they were massive. Yeah,
And it's funny you said Altered Beast because I was looking at it and I'm like, nah, that game sucks. But when you think of Genesis, you have to think of Altered Beast.
exactly. Especially, it's not gender specific, but specifically boys, because you get power ups and you become bigger and stronger every single time until you turn into a beast. Right? That game, that it's just appealing and every level. You know, yeah, the game itself was pretty boring side to side, but
Yeah.
but Altered Beast, yeah, you can't talk about Genesis without talking about Golden Axe, Altered Beast, and Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sure, definitely, no doubt. So I wanted to keep that one quick. It's a game you have to experience yourself. It's just I got to tell you, it's action packed. It's definitely would be a great game to play emulated if you can't find it. If you have an EHA product or another product that emulates stuff, it's just a fun game, and it's got a nice challenge factor, and I think people would really enjoy that.
Yep, right on. I like. Yep. See, I like the weird games too, though. Like, because like that game you bring it up is great because even people that was towards the end of the Genesis lifespan that game came out. So there's a lot of these
Yeah.
these the end of the Genesis lifespan games that are going to be a little bit more expensive because they started making fewer and fewer of those, and the quality went up so much. And so that's one of the things that I remember with Genesis, and there was less of them out there because they weren't selling as many, right? Because the console war was happening, and Genesis was kind of losing out at that point.
Oh yeah.
So, but for me, I like the really weird games too, but that are tons of fun. One I almost grabbed is called Tasmania. This is my little side one. I guess you would call it a hidden gem. But Tasmania is a nice, really fun game too. Dang, I should have just brought it. But anyways, that's a good one. But that's not what I'm talking about here. This kind of falls into that type of game. But I have tons and tons of memories playing this game, and this is probably one of my favorite Genesis games, just because it's just lots of fun to play. And some people I might catch some hate on it, but I really like this game, and I if you give it a chance, I think you'll like it too. QuackShot.
Yeah, no doubt.
QuackShot. It has Donald Duck as the main character. You're shooting plungers at people,
Yeah.
and it was cool because it had like different. So you'd shoot the plunger, and it's not just a projectile that kills stuff, but you can shoot it up against walls sometimes and use it to jump off of stuff to get to different hidden higher areas and stuff. It was very, very colorful. The graphics were freaking amazing, and the music was lots of fun too. It was one of those ones you'd play for a while, and then the music would just get stuck in your head like an earworm. Lots and lots of fun. It's not necessarily one of those games that people talk about very often. They also, just like Castle of Illusion, they did a remake of this one, if I remember right. So you can probably find it with better graphics, maybe a little bit different level
QuackShot?
design.
Did they? I didn't know they
I
did a
think they
remake of
did.
that.
I'm pretty darn sure they did. I'd have to really go back on that, but I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. I'm pretty darn sure that
Okay,
they
cool.
had one. But
I'm
this
gonna
is a
look
lot
that
of
up.
fun. Your kids will like it. You'll like it. Just try it out. Just even if you want to just look at some videos on it, just peek at it. You're gonna say, "Oh yeah, that looks kind of fun." It's kind of like it's like Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers on NES, kind of that same feel where it's just fun and it's colorful, and then the graphics are way better than on this than they were on the NES. But anyways,
Oh my God.
yeah,
And like Dan said, that game is like you're playing a cartoon. That and Tasmania. I remember when I popped that in, I'm like, oh my God, you're playing. It's like you're playing the cartoon. It was like, I don't know. I was blown away. It was really amazing. So
the
you're
first
not
time,
kidding. The graphics are good.
yep, the first time I played Tasmania, actually, dating myself, was back when they rented video games, right? I mean, you guys don't nowadays. The younger generation don't know nothing about video store rentals and video game rentals and stuff. But I remember that was the first time I played Tasmania, and that was a lot of fun. And I was like, "Yep, gotta own it." It just stuck with me. I rented that game, and then later in life it popped up, and then I was like, "I gotta have this one." It's those little memories that pop up. We
Mhm.
talked about at the beginning. Write a list, and then just from time to time, just add something to that list. And that was one of the ones that I had fond memories of, kind of like QuackShot. I had fond memories of QuackShot, and I picked that one up too. So take note if it's something that you think you might like. And I'm pretty sure it's affordable. It's not, again, most of this Genesis stuff is very affordable.
Quackshot. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't
No,
have
it's
that
fine.
prepared.
It's
So
fine. No big deal. But it is a fun game starring Donald Duck. So
yes, no
yeah,
doubt.
it's a good one. Go ahead. Go.
All right.
You're getting towards the bottom now, right, Wolf?
Oh, I'm at the bottom.
Oh,
This is it for me.
okay. Well, I
Yep.
got one left too. So we got the last twosies.
Okay. And I'm gonna hold up two right now. Here's one,
Oh, oh,
and here's the other.
oh! You can't see John Cena. Can't. No, that's not what we're going for.
No, in this hand, it's TMT Hyperstone Heist,
Oh,
which
yep.
is a game that I wanted, and I looked on eBay to get it, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Forget that. And in this hand is Splatterhouse 2 and 3. Wanted to get those games because, like Dan, I'm a huge, huge fan of Splatterhouse. You can't get it. You just it's so, and the games aren't even that good.
I can get them.
Splatterhouse
I
2
have
and
them
3.
upstairs.
Do you?
I have
Oh man,
Splatterhouse 2 and 3 right up there.
I'm jealous. Yeah, I've always wanted them, but I forget it. Like they're hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, if they fall in that category, there's probably a good Genesis made tons of games, but there's probably realistically there's 20 or 30 of them that are going to be up there, and they're because they're either one Michael Jackson, two something other random Buster Douglas boxing which nobody bought, but
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden everybody likes it because it has someone's name on it. Splatterhouse because people just know Splatterhouse. Just
Ghostbusters. I
yep.
have that. That's a ton of money. The
Yep.
Ghostbusters. All right. Well, anyway, this is one of those that are highly, highly collectible. I love the series. I think I own every single one of these games. I had to. It was a goal. It's Castlevania
Oh,
Bloodlines
that's
for
cool.
Sega Genesis. It is awesome. I didn't think anything could beat like Castlevania 3 for NES or like Super Castlevania 4 for
Mm.
Super Nintendo or Symphony of the Night for PS1. But this is one of those, I think, hidden gems. You don't hear people talk about Bloodlines a lot. It is great. And if you're a Castlevania fan and you like the 2D style, horizontal, got your whip, great bosses, amazing sound, challenge factor. This is it. But I got to tell you that this is going to set you back like $150.
Look, you had me at whips and
Please.
chains. I was there. I was sold
Yeah.
already, dude. You didn't have to say anything else. You said Castlevania, whips and chains, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to check it out.
I didn't even say Gag Apple. That's
And
crazy.
that's not. Yep. No,
All right. Well, that's my last game. I mean, I know what Dan's showing next, and I so wanted to show another one that he's not showing, but I didn't want to steal his thunder.
No, you know what? Let's talk about them. Let's talk about it before I even show it. So,
God,
So there is another series of games that are on Sega Genesis that is
yeah.
a series that is known. Like Genesis is known for this series, and you can't go wrong with them. One in particular is the most well known out of any of these games. But the one that I'm going to show is actually the last version of these games that was on this system, and it's going to be the Streets of Rage.
Oh boy.
Streets of Rage, this one in particular, Streets of Rage 3 is a really, really good game, but it's not the one that most people know about. Most people know about Streets of Rage 2, right?
Yeah. That's the one. That's my fave.
Streets of Rage 2, fantastic game. The story was good. The characters, you got to remember the big buff wrestler dude.
Max.
You got Max. You got what is it? Skate with the inline skates, and of course Blaze. And so, and that's always my character. I'm just Blaze usually.
Of course.
Then or you can the Axel is great too, because he always has, I call it the nutsack attack. That's the one where he jumps in the air, holds his hands behind his head, and he like knee attacks when you do a jumping attack.
And he goes, oh!
Yeah, he press down, he goes, ah! Right? So that's one of my favorite parts. But this game, again, what I was mentioning earlier, is towards the end of the Genesis lifespan, and so there was very few of these made. It's actually really, really good. I enjoyed this one, believe it or not, more than Streets of Rage 2, but it doesn't have the memories that Streets of Rage 2 does, because I wasn't young when I played this one for the first time. I have all my young kid memories playing Streets of Rage 2, but this one plays just as good as 2, and I think it actually has a little better, how should I put it, overall character design. Like, there's some crazy stuff in here, like Kate's, Skate is still back in here, but they traded out Max for Dr. Zahn.
Yeah.
And he was like a robot, like a half robot, like Buddhist doctor dude, which is pretty cool and a little wonky at the same time. But here's the thing though. When you look at this box art, this is one of those games too that you see it and you go, dude, that box art is freaking amazing. Look at that. There's a freaking kangaroo with boxing gloves on.
Yeah.
Like, they're
amazing.
How that for me was it, right? But here's the thing. So, like Wolf and I had talked about, we started collecting these things a long time ago when they were like really, really cheap. And this was one of those series, and there's a reason why I own all the Sonics, and I own all of the Splatterhouses, and I own all of the Streets of Rage. There's a reason, is because at that point, those are ones that I remembered playing, and I said, I'm going to get the entire series. I just bought them. So, like for Splatterhouse, though, that was weird because it only had 2 and 3. The original Splatterhouse only came out for another system, and we're not going to talk about it because it's like ripping, like, Wolf's going to throw his intestines out. Yeah, so, but this game was really, really cool. Try it out, because a lot of people don't know about it, but it is a lot of fun. It's a 2-player game, and actually, this was one of those ones that that wanted you to use that 6-pad. A lot of the towards the end of the Sega Genesis lifespan, remember the controller that Wolf showed had the 3 buttons on it, the 3 face buttons, actually 4 with the start. But they had a newer version that had 6 buttons, and this is one of those ones that they wanted you to have more button choices. And also it had this, it was set up for this thing right here. There was the activator. You can't really see it right there. So any of you that remember, again, we don't want to go into peripherals too much, but it's something that I never owned, but I thought it was kind of cool. It's kind of like the Power Glove, where it's legend, but it doesn't necessarily work well. Power Glove doesn't work very well, but the activator didn't work very well either. It was like a hexagonal thing that you would stand in, and when you would pass outside of it by punching up higher or kicking down lower, and it was supposed to pick up those movements, and so you'd feel like you were more, playing the game, and it would. I played it once, and it didn't work very well, but this was one of those games that they tried to sell it for. But Streets of Rage 3 was a lot of fun. Definitely, again, check that one out. Everybody knows about Streets of Rage 2, and again, it's fantastic, but play some Streets of Rage 3, you'll like it. They do have new iterations of Streets of Rage as well. They have that newer one that came out, Streets of Rage 4 on Steam. I think, is it 4?
What? 4.
Yeah,
Streets
4
of Rage
on.
4. Yep.
Yep. They came out with that just within the past year and a half, 2 years, on PC and on other. I mean, you can get it on PlayStation 5 and all that stuff too. Yeah. And that one's a lot of fun as well. You can play it online. So that's another thing that the Genesis was missing, was a lot of the co-op stuff, right? So there wasn't a whole lot of. There was some 2-player games. Mostly they were fighting games or beat 'em ups. but there was a lot more one player, and they hadn't really shifted to the more multiplayer stuff. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention this one last thing on Genesis, and neither one of us showed it, but we have them. Mortal Kombat.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Glad you brought it up.
Mortal Kombat Genesis was the only way you were going to get it with blood.
Yep.
And you had to know the blood code.
Mm-hmm.
So that in itself was really, really a selling point for me, because I liked the blood. I didn't like the fact that Nintendo took the blood out of there, but I did like the Super Nintendo version better because the characters were larger, it looked prettier, but it didn't have the fatalities that I want. I mean, that's what you want from Mortal Kombat. And I will tell you, Mortal Kombat 2, I didn't. Do I own that one? But that was another one of those. I had to own the whole set. So Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3, those were on Genesis. And so, but I can tell you, I got those just for the set. I didn't get those because I played them much. I played the original Mortal Kombat, but when it came to Mortal Kombat 2, there's no question that the Super Nintendo version was way better. So, yeah, Mortal Kombat.
Oh, wait, this just in. What was that, Harvey? Oh, Harvey's saying, could you hold up Streets of Rage 3 one more time? It was just brought to my attention that you win the prize for today for the most expensive game shown at $190 to $200 for Streets of Rage 3.
Yikes.
Yeah, so that's a gem. And so, in other words, that's going to price people out of playing an amazing game if they want to collect it, unless you got deep pockets. So,
I remember this game. So here, let me touch that again because I like touching things. Touch on that one more time. So when I went to buy this, I want to say it was probably 10 years ago, right around. That's when I really, started buying up a lot of my stuff that I remember having or stuff that I wanted to finish out and retro collecting. So 10, 12 years ago, I remember when I bought this because I wanted it case with manual and the game. There wasn't any out there even at that time. It was really hard to find. Yep, it was really hard to find. As a matter of fact, the only one I could find was one from a video rental.
Oh my god!
I ordered it on.
Cool.
And but I'm kind of weird about this. That and this came from what is it? Connecticut. So
okay.
I bet you this store is not even in existence anymore. But I'm pretty sure it's not. But the thing is that I'm kind of weird. I like things that have a little bit of age to them, because that's a little bit of history that's added to it. Those of you that don't really know me yet, I like a little bit of dings. I like a little a little of that flavor, the spice of life. Let's just put it it's existed in this space. So I decided not to remove that. Yes, I know I could remove it, but I decided not to remove that. And then and so it has the actual sticker on it, still good. And this is a mature title too, by the way. This is another one. So it was mature 13. So I think this is probably the most mature game that we showed too, isn't it? I think it's the same as Mortal Kombat, most likely.
It is GA. Yep, GA. Yep.
But here's the thing too. So because it was a rental, this is the book I got. Remember the rentals when you would get an actual photocopy book?
Oh yeah.
So this is the book that I have. So it's a photocopied book. Yes, I could probably find the actual book again and all that kind of stuff, but this is one of my favorite books though. So I wanted to show it because they talk about the activator in the book. They talk about what the position was for each different move inside the actual activator, which I thought was really stinking cool. So I was like, I have to show this book. Yes, it's not the original book. But it has that feel to it. Like I remember rental stores. I remember how they rented these games out, and I'm just happy that I have one. It's a little piece of history, but yeah, it's a fun game.
So just a quick note: the activator might as well have been called the Assinator, because I remember I had a friend who had that, and I played it, and I swear it was not registering anything. And you know what? I played it for 5 minutes and I was sweating. I'm like, I want to sit down and relax and play a video game. I'm not going to sit there and do whatever that guy's name, Taibo boxing workout like
P90X.
Billy Blanks or whatever the hell his name
right?
was. So screw that.
So, and you could get it to work kind of, but
A little bit.
you wouldn't. The thing is like if you're punching, right, and you're trying to punch, you would have to actually go slow for the activator to pick it up, because if you went too fast, it wouldn't pick up your punch. And same thing with the kick. So you're kicking like 5 times for it to do, or punching 5 times to get it to register. When it was like, oh wait, I started to figure out. It's like, okay, so it wants me to punch, 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 and yeah, it was garbage. Sorry, that was a terrible.
The Asinator.
Yeah, it was awful.
So I got one more quick thing to show Dan, and then we could wrap it up.
I'm ready. I like it.
It's
Oh,
these things are cool because I think it really gets people into the system. This is a Sega Genesis mini system that you could get, and it's so cool. It, Dan showed you what the system looked like. So this is a small scale version of what Dan's holding up. And it's got an HDMI connector, so you could hook it up to a TV. You could see it's got the authentic. These aren't the real, controllers back in the day, but they certainly made it to feel like you're playing the controllers from yesteryear. And it's got 40 classic titles. And just so everybody knows, here's the back. And it's got some of the titles. Oh my God, this is amazing. So look at this, Dan. Top, you got Castle of Illusion right here.
And Echo the Dolphin. Yeah, your favorite.
You got Altered Beast, Castlevania Bloodlines, which I showed, Contra, Eternal Champions. I'm just naming a few of these gems. Gunstar Heroes, which I wanted to show, and I didn't. Golden Axe, which Dan mentioned. Ghouls and Ghosts, which he showed. Shinobi 3. A couple Sonic games.
Streets of Rage.
Streets of Rage 2. Strider. Toe Jam and Earl.
Oh, that was so good.
Yeah, I forgot that I have that, and I don't know.
And Tailspin. That's another one too. Those are fun games.
So you could get that, and this had just come out recently, but it's already like selling like for stupid money, because the only way that you could get this was Amazon Japan. They did not release it here in North America, so it's selling on eBay for ridiculous amounts. But this is the Sega Genesis Mini 2, so that is another iteration of what the Genesis looked like. And then look at that. That is the controller that Dan was talking about with the 6 buttons. And that
was the middle finger that he was giving you guys, but go ahead.
Yes, that's right. Oh my goodness, this has Streets of Rage 3 on it.
Yes, but you can't get it because it's super expensive.
and guess what else it has? It has Sonic CD. It's got the CD games. It's got Sonic CD, Shining Force. It's got Night Trap and Sewer Shark.
Dude, those are the 2 that I was gonna pull out too. The Sewer Shark and Night Trap.
You serious?
Night Trap in particular. Yeah, good games.
It's got Final Fight CD. It's got Sylphid, which you showed. Sonic the Hedgehog CD, Ninja Warriors. I mean, this thing is a gem because it's got not only Sega Genesis games that we didn't show, it also has unreleased games. Here they are: Deviant Pie, Fantasy Zone, Spatter, Space Harrier 2, Star Mobile, Super Locomotive, and Versus Payu Sun, which you can't play unless you get one of these or emulate it somehow. So
nice.
Those are super cool. And if you don't want to, get the original system, get all the original hookups, buy the games, and you don't have a Megacade or any of these other emulating machines, you could pick up one of these and plug it into your fancy TV, and you're playing old school Sega Genesis just like that.
Yep, and usually higher graphical quality too, because it's HDMI. So here we are to the end, and we like to do this at the end, is what are we going to grade it on? Grade from A to D.
Okay.
And I'm going to explain the scale again for those of you that this might be the first video. So it's A to D. So A would be the most collectible systems, meaning it's ease of use to get the system and peripherals, ease of games, like to find them and be able to buy them, and the cost of overall games in the system itself. So we take all of those things into account, and this is, again, just objective. But for me, as a matter of fact, out of all of my systems that I have, and I've been going through some of them because we're talking about, doing more of these videos, of course. I would say that Sega Genesis is the #1 most collectible and affordable retro system out there right now. The games are very, very affordable. Wolf talked about some of the expense of some of the other games, but so, like Streets of Rage 3, he said was what, 200 to 300 bucks, somewhere around there. I'm pretty darn sure you could probably find the cart for maybe a third of that, and that's one of the more expensive games, right? So, and you can do it if you have to have the artwork. You could always print out the artwork and get a Genesis case and put it in there and make it look pretty, so you're not spending so much money. Again, I just want you to enjoy your games. But as far as the games, the availability, how long the system was out, the overall cost, there's tons of them out there. So again, this is the most collectible. I'm going to give this a grade A, as in for anyone that wants to get into retro collecting. This is the one system that I would really, if you strap for money and you just want to start building a collection, lots of good games on there. The graphics were still good, and it's very, very affordable. Unlike some of the other systems that are out there, this one in particular for me is, looking through everything that I got here, even Sega CD, very affordable. So what do you think, Wolf?
It's hard to argue with what you're saying. I agree. It's a very collectible system. Believe it or not, there's some games that are starting to creep up and getting a little bit more expensive. But for the most part, they're very reasonable, like you said. And we didn't even talk about 32X today.
Right.
The 32X games, which I didn't get involved in that stuff. Like, I know Dan's talking about he'd like to get the CD player, the Sega Genesis, the 32X, and then there's something
Sonic
else
and Knuckles and the game
top.
and the what is it, the Game Shark or whatever, and you gotta get the Tower of Power in there.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give it an A-, and but you know what? If you twisted my arm, I'd probably say an A2. But it is definitely affordable, very collectible. Lots out there, like Dan said. Like, you could easily get a Sega Genesis in box for a reasonable price, and you're not going to have to sell a kidney for it. So it's yeah. So that's what we got for Sega Genesis today. And like all of our episodes, we could come back months from now and show you 7 hidden gems that we each have. So that's the beauty of this series, is that it could evolve. We could do Sega Genesis, just peripherals. There's so much you could do with this series, but today we just really showed games that meant something to us, gave us some memories when we were a kid, and just had just a ball playing them. It didn't necessarily mean that these are the best games for the system. We just want to preface that.
And there was a lot that we talked about too, like a lot of games we didn't show that we might own, but we didn't want to be here forever having to show all these different games. But if you go back through and pay attention to some of the other games that we mentioned, you'll like those ones as well. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had a little bit of fun hanging out with just Wolf and I, just talking about random stuff. And as always, Wolf, I love hanging out with you, buddy. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, definitely. And as always, I'm always going to end with this. Please do what you can to support Dantron 69K's channel. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. And we also like the interactivity of these videos. So, we didn't see a lot of comments in the last one, but, throw some comments in and show us, or tell us, what your favorite Genesis games were, or even give us some ideas for future shows that you'd like us to do, because believe it or not, Dan and we read all the comments and we will respond to you as well. So we appreciate the support, and we hope you get something out of it. And if you get a laugh or two at the same time, then even better.
Right on. All right, you guys. Well, until next time, Dantron and Wolf out.
Peace.